Now I want to talk about selection intent. Selection intent is a very powerful tool, and pretty much everything that you do, you have to consider how you select, because the way NX is set up is it remembers those selections. So as you're performing a function, as you're doing something, you want to make sure that the selection intent is set up correctly. And I will be reiterating this when I show you some of the additional tools that we're going to get into. But I want to give you a broad understanding of what selection intent is up front. Now, when we look at the top, this top toolbar here, you'll see I have no selection filter, entire assemblies, several icons, and then point selectors. These are all meant to help you in selecting the geometry that you want. So in this case, I have basically no filters set up. So if I come over and hover over the top of something, you'll see it wants to pick a face. I could potentially get an edge. Now you'll notice that if I hover over the top of something for long, I get what's called a quick pick selector. If I pick, you'll see a list of all of the things contained within the selection ball there. I can filter this out with features. I can filter this out with body objects. You can see I have different objects here. And just close that out. So if I want to be very specific about something, I can come over here and say, you know what? I want to pick nothing but faces, for example, or maybe I want to pick nothing but solid bodies or sketches. So in this case, if I say solid bodies, when I pick, you'll see that all I have is one solid body. It's not picking faces. It's not picking edges. You'll also note that with solid body set up here, some of the other selection intent disappear because these are meant to help you pick center points off of edges, points on an edge or on points on a face. So because I have this set to solid body, these are no longer available. If I come over here and do a deselect all or do a reset filter, you'll notice that everything is deselected, everything is reset to the original, and you have all of your selection intent available once again. If I have this set to, let's say, solid body again, you'll notice out in the screen, I can only pick the solid. But if I come over to my model navigator, for instance, I can still pick those elements here. They're not filtered out. All right, so I'm going to reset that. Some of the other selection options that I have, I'm just going to escape on the keyboard to deselect everything a couple times. Some of the other options that I have for selection intent are things like trap. So if I click and drag, I'm holding the first mouse button down, you'll notice I just trapped in all of those faces, edges, and such. I'm going to deselect all. So if I change this and say edge and do a trap, you'll notice now I'm just getting the edges, not the actual faces. Okay, let's reset, deselect. You have different type of traps, lasso, circle. Now, as far as additional parts of selection intent that you should be made aware of is they do change. Your selection types change based off of the feature that you're creating. So, for example, if I come in and create an extrude, you'll notice selection intent change. You'll see I have connected curves. All of the point selection functionality is deactivated because you can't extrude a point. But you have all of these methods of picking the section or the shape that you're going to extrude. Cancel that out. If I go into, let's say, edge blend, well, this is technically going to apply to edges. So you'll notice here, again, the point selector's basically gone. And I come in, it's going to pick tangent curves. And you'll notice that some of the terminology is similar between the features as well. So if I use, let's say, tangent curves, I can come in, you'll notice it's not picking any faces. If I come over here, go up to tangent curves and change this to, say, face edges, now you'll notice it's not going to pick an edge, it's going to actually pick a face. So the intent is going to be remembered inside of your selection intent. Now, if you did pick things, let me come over here, go back to tangent curves. Let's say you're picking things and you realize as you're picking edges, you've accidentally picked something. Just hold the shift key down to deselect whatever it is that you've accidentally selected. Okay, so that allows you to, instead of canceling out or escaping out of whatever it is you've picked, you can now be very specific about what you're deselecting. And again, that's the shift key on the keyboard. Also, as far as selection and selection intent, I should mention at the top of all of our menus, we also have a reset. And this just basically resets the selection for each one of those menus or tools that you have open at that point. And it's just for that moment. It just resets what you have selected. Other parts of selection intent, again, you have filters. So you have general filters. If I click on general filters, you notice you can do detailed filtering. You can filter by colors. You can also do all sorts of really finite detailed filtering depending on the type of elements that you have in the file. If you have curves, you have curve features, you have datums, edges, whatever you have in that file. So you can get really specific about display attributes with your selection and selection intent. Now, right now, you'll see datums is currently picked. And if I try to come out here and pick anything, it's not going to allow me to pick anything because of selection intent. Oftentimes, when you are using your selection intent, and especially when you're new to the system, it feels like oftentimes it's broken. I can't pick anything. Why can't I pick anything? It's because your selection intent is set to something that does not allow you to pick those things. So make sure that, if you see the reset filter icon, this is a big tell. If you see something in here, this is another big tell. Just come over here, hit that. You'll notice no selection filter. That icon is no longer highlighted. So at this point, everything is back to defaults and you should be able to pick pretty much anything. As far as the detailed filtering, as far as some of the other objects, I don't use that a whole lot. It's a great tool, kind of rare. Another thing you should be made aware of, oftentimes, maybe you want to pick a range of things. You pick in the part navigator here, and if I want to pick a range, I can hold the shift key and pick that range. So you can pick everything between the two elements that you've selected. If I want to pick multiple elements that are not in a range, I can hold the shift key, the control key down and pick multiple elements. It's not common that you use the control key, but there are instances where you do have to use the control key in order to multi-select your elements. So it's fairly rare. It does happen, but that's basically how you do it with the control key. It's similar to an Excel spreadsheet. You pick a range, you hit the shift key. You want to pick onesie, twosie, then you hold the control key down. But that's basically it. That's how you pick things, your selection intent. Again, just make sure that everything that you do, if you're having a hard time picking, just check this little bar up at the top. Very, very important.